Okay, good morning. We're going to go through the Tai Chi Broadsword. The weapons class have been very, very light on. In fact, we don't even have a weapons class live anymore. So this is the only session that you have. So Susan, you're good there, and I know you followed the other one. And Bill, hopefully you're watching. We'll go through the broadsword. If there are any questions, you can kind of dial it in. Other than that, hopefully you're memorizing and learning it. Okay, we start off slowly as usual, running through the movements. In fact, this is the brush knee movement. This is grasp the sparrow's tail. So I'm just going to give you the front image of what that looks like, so that hopefully that's kind of helpful. Okay. So once I open the form and I slice to the front, to the corners, you can see I step over here to get that sword, that cut. I step over here to get that cut, and then I come down the center and I poke. So this is mirror image, and then we sit back, and I turn and I get underneath and behind the blade, the back of the blade, and I push forward. Okay? And then once I'm here, I go over the top, and then I come up. Okay? So when I come up, I'm here, and then if I turn, I end up like that. So you see, as I turn, I end up like this. Yeah. Yeah, okay. So we're not at that stage yet, but I'll go over that later. Yeah. So when we're here, we're like this. So the sword is like this. Okay, then I open it up, and I take a step, and then I poke. And then I drop my wrist and flip it around, and then I'm like this. So that kind of gives you an idea what that is. Okay. So the diagonal flying that you're talking about is this. Okay. So this is diagonal flying. And then if I step up to this and I poke 1, 2, 3, so that's kind of what the front view looks like. So in the diagonal flying, I'm like this, and then I go back to center, and I'm 1, 2, 3. I'm here. I turn, and I slice. So is that what she means? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to center. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Underneath, over the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay. After you push, 1, 2, 3. So that's that section actually. So going from there, going backwards actually takes us to the end, which shows you a little bit more of the end of the form. We always start in the beginning, so maybe that was a good thing to do, is pick it up from that chicken step or the pigeon step. So you're stepping and coordinating with the elbows and the knees, and then you're turning, and then you're separating. So you're here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You make a U-turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So when we're here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can coordinate the legs, then you just go through the typical forward position to a turn, forward position to a turn. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay, so let's go through from the beginning to see what that's like. Okay, so we're here. Preparation, we step up. Here's your position, and we press. Turn. Grasp the sparrow's tail. Single whip. Brush knee and push. Sit back and hold. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Right in the corner. Sit back, push forward. Go over the top. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Face that back corner. Kick up. 1, 2, 3. Waist cut. 1, 2. Go forward. Fold. Step up. Over the top. Chop. Middle. Switch. 1. Slice around. 1, 2, 3, 4. Push. Back. 1. So really, waist cutting is spinning and chopping, slicing and coming up. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So, okay, good. So that's the whole sequence. I broke it down just like I did the 24 movement the best I could to give you the sort of the precision movement if you could see that there's a consistency in the motion. Hopefully you can see the slices and the positions that are consistent as starting and ending positions. And then the final positions, if you can capture those lines and images, then that's what you struggle with and that's what you work with to try to master or perfect the form. Essentially, that's what forms are. They're groupings of movements, and you take it in. It's like a book of motions, and you just put it together, and you practice. Now, the discovery and the timing, the theoretical side of how the body has to move is something that's to be determined. And everyone is different, and everyone has their own sort of vision of what it should be like, or maybe their perception of what it should be like. But the thing is, it's all information that has to be analyzed and diagnosed in the body as well as in the mind as to what you're trying to do. So, it's an apparatus. You can take it for what it is. It's a weapon, essentially. How you use it, or how much safety there is involved, or how much people look at it as, well, weapons are not something that you really want to be playing around with. But it's artistic. So we use it as something to train, and that's an apparatus. So whether it's a stick or it's a sword or a spear or whatever it is, it's really motions that we're cultivating. Most of us are not going to run around the streets with one of these, slicing up everything and so forth. So take it as a training tool, and you work to build your coordination as an extension of your body. So that's how you kind of have to look at it. A lot of people are not interested in learning weaponry. In fact, when I was first starting, I wasn't interested actually in apparatus. I was more interested in the physical forms, the empty-handed forms. But as time evolved, you know, some of it was because I was introduced to it, and some of it was because it was somewhat mandatory for me to learn these things. So it became something that I picked up, but it's also something that I realized is the extension of the body. So looking at it as two separate things really is not the way it should be. If you don't understand what it's for or what the purpose of an extension of the body is, then you can't really make that connection. So a lot of people that do Tai Chi or martial arts, there's one aspect that doesn't want to do it, or one population or demographic that doesn't want to do this. Then there's another demographics that only want to do this because it is a weapon. So, it's a different mindset. But for, people that have been studying empty hand forms for a long time, it is really another challenge to pick up something, put it in your hand, and turn it into something that's functional, sort of like that. Sort of like, different types of pots and pans that we use to do different tasks when it comes to cooking. Why don't we just have one, tool that we use here, a frying pan or a pot? Which one do we need? But the thing is, depending on what you're going to do with it, the functionality of it, you might need a smaller saucepan, or you might need a deeper one. You want to speed things up, you use a pressure cooker. It's just, it just enhances your skills in whatever you're trying to do. So this is the same thing. When you enhance, when you find your center line, when you find the oblique, the lines, those are really an extension of your body. To get the blade like this in this position has to do with this stuff. To get the hands level like this, and then vertical, and then over the head, and then down, and then up, and find 45 degrees, that's muscle memory. If this is 45 degrees, that's going to be 45 degrees. That's what the extension of the body is. So, we're looking at this, but what about this? What about this? What about this? These are positions that just show up. And, the person that's more skillful will be much more precise with those movements. And in fact, it's nothing that I look in the mirrors and try to do. I didn't even realize how precise my angles were until I took some pictures 25 years ago, when we were doing some posing for the website. I don't even remember what it was. But that was, when we held the stick and held the sword, I was just surprised that, because I never really looked at it like that. And before I had a school, I didn't really advertise for myself, but that's how I actually come to realize what that muscle memory really is. It's really something that's amazing that the human body has, adapting these center line positions and the stance and everything else that's involved with that. In fact, yesterday in the Kung Fu class, we were going through something like this that I was bringing up as an addition to the resetting your stance because of the pivotal nature of our stances and positioning. Now, when I teach, pivoting is to steer you in a direction because part of the mapping of the form, but the reality is that pivoting and turning is really a mechanism that the hip is capable of doing. So it's turning out and turning in and turning out, turns in. We go like this, we turn out, step up, retreat, straighten the feet. All of this stuff is part of the manipulation of the lower half of our body. It happens from the hip all the way through to the foot. The foot actually doesn't turn out unless your hip turns out. And your hip doesn't open up until you relax the muscles and create that torsion. That's a skill. That's actually something that people don't use a lot because we sit a lot and we don't actually turn corners. In fact, if we want to turn a corner, we just turn the whole body and just move. We don't actually pivot. So that pivoting is actually a strategy, a technique to get us in a direction, but it's also working this hip. This hip needs to be rotating just like our shoulders. Now, if you don't use your shoulders much, then they're going to be compromised a bit. If you don't use your hip, it's going to be compromised. But a lot of knee problems come from the hip problem. So, they go leg and leg, hand in hand. So, you you have to understand that the human body needs to move in order for it to be functional. Otherwise, it's just like any joint. Leave your car, those ball and socket joints in your car, leave it out there in a salty climate down by the beach for a number of months and not use it. See what happens. The joint kind of gets frozen because there's oxidation, there's all kinds of stuff that happen. Well, your body goes through the same process. And that's just kind of something that I want to share with you as an idea so that you can think a little bit deeper about what the benefits of movement are. So, anyways, even the cross hand position when we swing like this, the fact that we're moving our shoulders and our hips and spinning and poking and sitting back, these are all parts of a skill. When we shift and we absorb the movement, that's the footwork. We absorb the movement. That's absorbing the movement, is absorbing the shock. How do you absorb the movement? Because your legs are like springs, so you absorb the shock by letting it compress and expand and compress and expand. So what is that? That's yin and yang. When you compress something, it would expand, because compression of a spring creates energy. It's kinetic energy that's stored, and when you release it, so your muscles are like that, and what it drives are your bones, and your bones is your skeletal structure. So that's what it is. So on that concept, then you can see why it's important to move your body a certain way. So the different actions, the different techniques that you develop from this really supports, these different mechanical concepts that we have in the human body. So I like to talk about this kind of stuff because the body is basically a machine, and you have to function. But the amazing part of the machine, it's self-contained. It's systemic. It has everything working for it if you work it. So we were saying in the last class, a healthy body is when your organs are all functioning properly, and obviously, some of that's age-related. Things go, they get old and they don't want to work the way they're supposed to. But the only way to maintain those parts, because the human body does it, is allow it to adapt and keep using it. The usefulness of these parts are actually because the body thinks it needs to do that, and it keeps working. But once it thinks it doesn't need to work, then things start to shut down. And shutting down means, either dysfunctionality or, parts, they reach a shelf life and they start to die, even on a cellular level. But everything, has a beginning and there's an end. So just like in our form, there's a beginning and there's an end. So hopefully we cannot reach that end prematurely, and we go forward and back and here. So how fast you move really is a function of your execution and how much your body wants to put into that as an effort. So that's recruiting those as an intent. And that's where, obviously when we slice something, we're not going to do this. You have to put enough pressure in it to actually slice. So that's really on the functionality side of it. So Lucian, how much time we got? About 10 minutes or whatever? Yeah. So is there any questions, any other section they want to kind of tap into? Yeah. So grasp the sparrow's tail, as we know, is round out. So that's the same round out. So you have a sword. When we turn, here's your position. Here's your neutral. This is there. Elbows relaxed. Forward. And then we roll back. Now get the other hand going with the sword so that the arms are actually moving together. So this would be single whip, but we don't go to single whip. We come down to here and brush. So use this motion as the brush. But when you hold the sword, depending on, because that becomes a feeling, tactile, you have control of the support based on where the pressure is and where the intensity of the motion. So when I hold the sword and I have my thumb here, the thumb actually is capturing it. I don't need to grip it. So your thumb is part of that. Your fingertips is part of that. And everything is kind of hung together. When we hold the sword, we don't need to hold it so that there's no dexterity in the hand. In fact, when you have it, if it's just manipulated in the hand, it doesn't take any strength to actually support this. Right now, I only have 2 fingers controlling this blade. And I'm just making a circle. So that's actually what ends up happening. When I go like this, you see my fingers are like this. Which fingers do I want to use to control this blade? That's the dexterity that you develop with fingertip control. So that's just to give you an idea that over gripping it is not a good thing, because you deaden the force or deaden the ability to manipulate it. So the liveliness of the hand. So a lot of people have problems with their hands, arthritis, a number of things, poor circulation, carpal tunnel syndrome. All of these things are part of overuse, but then excessiveness. So you don't want to, use these joints and create inflammation. Oh yeah? So the idea of not manipulating your joints is really something that's critical in, sort of the health of your connective tissue and the joints, because the joints, are mobile, and you have to keep them moving, but not overusing them in a sense that it's too much tension. Tension is something that's not good for anything. It's excessive. So we talk about yin and yang. Excessiveness is 2 extremes, right? You're either over tight or too flaccid or lack of energy. So you have to balance, find that middle point. And the middle point is using the right strength and at the same time synchronize it so that you use more rather than less of your components, which is your joints. And then the more joints you use, the less energy you utilize in each individual section of your body. And then you get more balance, and you get better circulation, and you get better utilization of the energies in your body, because what you deplete are the places that are most concentrated, right? That's what's going to happen. I know Susan mentioned ATP, that's all part of muscle contraction. But the thing is, we're not utilizing it if we're isolating it. We're using too much, right? So you have to balance it out. So that's what we should understand. When you do your Tai Chi form, it should be the same way. So when the hands move, there's a geometry of position. When the hands move, the geometry of position. So all of these things are important. So anyways, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you got something out of that. And so we'll see you next week. And tomorrow we're going to be doing some more streaming, I think, tomorrow on Thursday. Okay. So, okay. Okay. So he just gave me a list of names. There's Sylvia, there's Arona, there's Roger, and there's also Michelle, who have made donations to our Patreon page. That's kind of a new thing that we've created as something to help support the streaming as well as the studio, which has become, after the pandemic, something that's really uncertain. So the uncertainty is that we don't really know when students are coming back because of the way the pandemic is sort of playing out. So I think we have maybe a 20% return on students. 80% have actually not come back. So the difficulty is supporting this big space. It's going to be a challenge going forward. So the Patreon page, which is something that's really being supportive as a membership, and there's different tiers of how that can be utilized. So the supporting is an optional thing. Obviously, we don't, if it's a hardship for anybody, we don't want you to do that. I'm going to continue to stream because there's people that benefit from this, and we also, would like if people can afford it and want to be supported because of the content that we're sending out, then by all means do that, and we'd be grateful for that, because that's the only way we can keep something like this going. So on that note, you can subscribe to YouTube, get more friends to do it, and then the Patreon is something that is a button on our website, and you can look at that, and then if you have questions, you can ask about that. But it's just something that we've put out there. So the other thing is, one of the things, and we just found out that the Parkinson's Foundation didn't actually fund us this year. For some reason, our scores weren't enough for them to feel that we could be funded by the Parkinson's Foundation. So that kind of set us back a bit as well. So with that note, we're just, tomorrow I have a Parkinson's class that I'll be doing, and I have to let the people know that we were not funded, and that, at that point maybe they can do something with the Patreon as some type of support for the content that we continue to live stream. So there's a lot of things going on. Hopefully you can understand that we're going through some changes, and this level of uncertainty remains. So I'll see you then, next time.